Hi everyone! This past weekend I went to a brand new event. The event was the Bay Area Tandy Assembly Meetup, which was held in San Francisco. At that event, I gave a lightning talk where I explained the history and backstory of my Flexing the Color Computer project. The event was not recorded, so I decided to record it and publish it here on my YouTube channel. So that's what I have for you today. I hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it. This is MikeyN6IL, and today I'm going to give you a short talk going over a summary of my Flexing the Color Computer project that I've been working on this year. First, I'm going to start with a little bit of history about Flex. The first version of Flex came out in 1978 for the Southwestern Technical Products 6800 computer, and those came out with the disk drives, the DMF1 being the 8-inch and the MF68 being the very new Shugart drives. Then in 1979, the 6809 came out, and also that year Flex was ported to 6809. 6809 computers didn't really come out until 1980, and not only did we have a color computer in 1980, the Southwestern Technical Products 6809 computer was also released in 1980. When the color computer was first released, it did not have a disk system at all, and that disk system came in 1981. So now that you have an official disk system, then a different operating system started to show up for that. So in 1982 is when Frank Hogg Labs released Color Flex for the color computer. And I will show an ad in the next slide. They were pretty boastful about how good Flex was, actually. It was pretty interesting. In 1983, Tandy and Microware released OS9 for the color computer. And pretty much from this point, everybody kind of forgot about Flex on the color computer until I came by. So here is the slide. Turn your color computer on to the power of Flex and OS9. What's kind of interesting about this particular ad is not only does it have Flex only for $99, but it also has the unreleased Frank Hogg Labs version of OS9. No, this is not the Tandy and Microwave version. This is Frank Hogg Labs did their own port. And as far as we know, it never saw the light of day. How did I learn about Flex? Well, I was kind of inspired by Adrian's Digital Basement. He did a series about the Southwestern Technical Products 6800 computer, and I found that very interesting. And I kind of wondered, well, what can I do? Is there a way I can emulate this computer? So I figured out that MAME actually has fairly decent emulation for this computer. It's a pretty good facsimile for using the real machine, inserting cards and slots and different things and things like that. I also found software on dramp.com, which is Mike Douglas's website. He also has YouTube videos. And I also learned about the Flex user group, which has basically the whole collected archive of everything Flex. The Flex people are actually pretty good hoarders of data, and their archive is extremely interesting and has so many different things in it. I feel like it's a better collection than some of the color computer archives. It might be a little bit less organized, but there's so many things dating all the way back to those very late 70s hiding in that archive. So I got Flex running pretty well under MAME emulation, got to learn about it, and made a few videos about it. So after I had Flex running in MAME, I wanted to do something that had real hardware. And I found out that there's a project called Multicomp 6809 by a guy named Neil Crook. And that runs on the same Altera DE1 board as the CoCo 3 FPGA. So I loaded that thing up on there, and that's a pretty cool project actually. If you have a DE1, you should check it out. Not only does it run Flex, it runs Nitrous 9, Fusix, Camelforth, and Cubix as well. So you can run all kinds of really interesting operating systems and old software on that machine. So I played with that for a couple of weeks, but it kind of didn't really feel retro enough. You know, I have an FPGA that's emulating a 6809 computer. I can run all these operating systems, that's cool, but I wasn't using my real CoCo hardware that I have. So that's kind of what I meant by it doesn't feel retro enough. So as I said, the Flex archives have a lot of interesting things in them. I was digging around in there and I found a directory called FHL Color. And I sort of scratched my head for a moment and said, FHL is clearly Frank Hogg Labs. What do they mean by FHL Color? And when I checked it out, I actually found in the Flex archives the color computer version of Flex. They actually had a copy of it in there. It turns out that I also found the same archives on the color computer archive as well, but I just didn't really know about them until a little bit later. So trying these disk images out, they simply didn't work. And it took a while for me to figure out what was going on with it. And I had to remember that one of the complications with even running Flex in MAME is the disk formatting on Flex is pretty unique. Track 0 is single density, and the other tracks could be single density or double density. And it turned out that the problem why I couldn't get Flex to work was because over time, those disks had been copied and modified and repaired, and through all the translations, that information about the density being different on different tracks was lost. And that was the reason why it didn't work. I wrote some tools that enabled me to restore track 0 to single density and the remaining tracks would be double density. And that was primarily done using DMK disk format, which has that capability. So I converted those images to DMK. I also created SDF files to run on the CoCo SDC. And that allowed me to make both physical floppies and also run on modern hardware on the SDC. I could run Flex in both places. Along the way, I fixed a small bug in MAME. I was actually able to look at the code and look at the schematic and figure out that they had made a mistake, a place where it looked like two wires crossed that they actually didn't cross. So I fixed that bug. At this point, I basically restored it to where it was usable. But there's actually more to the story than this. This is not the end. So, you know, I was playing with Flex on the color computer and making videos and doing all kinds of interesting things with it. But I had a vague recollection in the back of my mind that somebody had given me some color computer hardware about 20 years ago, and that had some disks. And I remembered that there were some kind of interesting disks in there. So these disks were at my parents' house. I went back there and took a look, and sure enough, the disk image that you see here on the screen, Color Computer Flex version 5.0.4, that disk was actually in my collection. I didn't pass go and I didn't collect $200. I raced straight home, got out my grease weasel, got out my best floppy drive, and made a disk image of the physical floppy disk. So I converted this disk image to DMK and SDF for the CoCo SDC. It was also in the native SDC format of the grease weasel. So I posted all of these to the Internet Archive and the Color Computer Archive, since those are actually an image of a real master boot disk, not something that had been copied over the years over and over again. explaining a little bit more about what you can do with Flex. Flex is a very simple operating system, has a kernel and a command line, has a file management system that actually deals with opening and closing files, reading and writing to them, whatnot. Has a disk driver for accessing the actual disk hardware, and a terminal driver for showing the output and getting the input from the keyboard and whatnot. And you can see in the screenshot that I have here, for the color computer, it's actually using a graphics screen. The graphics screen on the color computer, the highest resolution is 256 across by 192 down. And it's only 2 colors if you don't count artifacting. So it's black and white. In that screen resolution, the normal high-res text mode that you get a lot of the times is 51 across by, could be 16 or 24 down. So 51 by 24 is exactly what you get by default with color Flex, and that's what's shown in this screenshot here. You can also run some commands to change that. You can get much bigger text with 32 by 16. It's still on the graphics screen, drawing every single character. And you can also get an 80 by 24, but those letters are pretty small. There are not very many pixels to tell the difference in between like H and N and M. And 0 and O, things like that are a little hard too. The 51 character one is pretty readable. So what did people actually do with Flex? Well, they did programming, because you had multiple versions of BASIC, multiple versions of C, Pascal, COBOL, Fortran, Forth, Sculptor, assembly language, and I left off of this list Lisp. They also had, Frank Hogg Labs had XLisp for Flex as well. They had editors. You had the TSC editor. TED, T-E-D, is Frank Hogg Labs, very simple editor. Frank Hogg Labs also had TS Edit for Flex, which I have actually recovered and will do a video on at a later time. They had the Stylo and Dyna editors, which are more for text processing and publishing. People use them for word processing and creating documents. There were also a smattering of business and scientific applications that were available for Flex. People making hardware, to control things with the computer, or people doing calculations, or accounting software. Some of those things are actually floating around out there in the Flex archives. And lastly, just hacking. People did all kinds of crazy things with these computers in the early days. So that's sort of the flavor of what you can actually do with Flex. Well, since this is a short summary of my project Flexing the Color Computer, that's all that I have in this presentation today. So if you want to learn more, the QR code is there. You're already on YouTube, so you can subscribe to my channel, or I have a playlist called Flexing the Color Computer. If you want to learn more about the story that I went over, that story goes over a bunch of videos. And lastly, I'd appreciate if you like my videos and you like my content. You can subscribe and comment and all that stuff. So this is all that I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this quick summary of how I got into the Flexing the Color Computer project. Alright, bye everyone.